Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices Live on Facebook. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we do Facebook Live every Tuesday night here, Mac Voices Live here on Facebook every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., give or take. And we invite you to join us. I have posted the information on how to join us in the Zoom room on Facebook. So if you're so inclined, come on over and you can talk to me, talk to my guests, and talk to each other. Or you can just hang out in the chat on Facebook, send us questions or comments, heckle us, and we'll do our best to respond. And the heckling usually is what gets done more than anything. This time around, I'm happy to have as our featured guest, Shelly Brisbin. Shelly, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Chuck. It's great to see you as well.
It was so good of you to take some time and do this little show, because we never know what we're going to get into as we
It's
dive
true.
in.
It's very true.
Mr. David Ginsburg is here with us as well. David, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for jumping in. And folks, we should tell you that this is something we've never had before, I don't think, on Mac Voices or Mac Voices Live for that matter. Shelly is installing right now as we speak the beta on her iPhone. So
Pray for my little phone here. It actually feels warmer than normal, so I know something's happening. It's my little 10R. It needs a beta because so many people on the internet, where everyone always tells the truth, says that the beta is stable and that it's perfectly fine. So I thought, why not?
So you're installing a beta on a production machine or a machine you depend on?
Yes. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I considered buying a phone to sell later, but there's a couple of features that I really need that are part of iOS 14 that I really need to write about for the book I'm working on. And the only way I can do that is with a production phone. I've already pre-Googled how to return back to the previous OS. But I'm just taking a little bit of a risk. I've got plenty of iPads and computers around here, and I don't go anywhere. It's not like I leave the house. So I figure the risk is lower than normal, but I have no illusions. It could go terribly wrong. I mean,
So I have to admit, what I'm trying to figure out is whether this enhances your credibility or destroys it. I'm not quite sure which.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. That's a super good question. I like to think it enhances it because I admitted it publicly and I had a good reason for it that I'll probably be able to write about and talk about for weeks. And if it crashes and burns and it's terrible, then I'll just say, don't do it, never again. And it'll be a word to the wise kind of thing. So I do it with full knowledge. I guess that's worth something.
Oh, that's good. So you're either going to be a star or you're going to be a shining example of what not to do. Don't
be like Shelly. Don't. Or, that's Shelly. She's so smart.
Yeah. Well, we're talking pre-show. You sort of hit the jackpot here because there was all kind of tech and Apple news today. And, we had planned to talk a lot more about iOS 14, but we may get back to that toward the end of the show. But I do want to mention—
if we get around to it.
Yeah. But you say that you're doing this installation because of the book you're writing, which, of course, is the newest edition of iOS Access for All.
That is right. This will be the 8th edition for iOS 14, and I'm pretty much on my usual schedule. I call this book season. Between the time they announce iOS and the time it ships, I write like crazy. And then after it ships, I write for another couple of weeks or a month like crazy. And it's a book all about the accessibility features of iOS 14 in this case. And there are a few new ones. And a couple of them are specific to newer phones. And a couple of them aren't even available on the iPad because they're hardware dependent. And so in order to even see them, I have to install the beta.
Right. It makes sense. And, we're having a lot of fun here, but, this is your business. So, you're one of the people that we look to take those slings and arrows, and in case something goes wrong, and then tell us about it later. So,
or I go out and buy an SE tomorrow if it just goes terribly wrong, and I just it's all backed up. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is that over the years. Well, I don't guess it's fair to say over the years it's gotten more stable. I feel like this year so far, from everything I've read and talked to people about, it's been pretty good. It doesn't mean something dreadful couldn't happen, but I feel better about doing it now than I would have, a couple of years ago or 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. Well, we'll say thank you in advance for whatever happens. And
yes. You can invite me back in a couple of weeks when I have egg on my face. Yeah.
We'll definitely have you back on when once the book is finished, and we can talk.
I appreciate that.
More about your adventures in
sure.
iOS 14. But I guess. Well, gee, I don't know what the big news is today. I guess the biggest news for this audience is probably the release of new iMacs.
New iMacs, so exciting, and people seem excited about them. It's funny because it's a speed bump. And it's a memory bump and a different configuration and all that. But I feel like people, and especially with the ARM transition coming at some point, even though Apple told us it wasn't going to happen right away, it feels like people are excited. And I have to confess, I have a 2015 iMac sitting right here. And funnily enough, I opened up InDesign, not to plug the book again, but I opened up InDesign this morning to look at the book files I'm working on. And it's a really, really big InDesign document. And the computer sputtered a little bit. And I thought to myself, maybe it's time I start thinking about a new one. And then an hour and a half later, Apple said, we have a deal for you if you want one. And you can have it this week. That's the other thing. They're shipping right away. I could spend a lot of time at apple.com if I wanted to.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was going through and configuring a machine for myself. I didn't hit the buy button, but doing the configuration. And I saw that it could be delivered by Friday, and I was like, "Oh, I really wish I hadn't seen that."
Instant gratification is bad sometimes.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, but it seems like a substantial speed bump. SSDs are now standard. There are no more Fusion drives being offered. Let's see what else. They didn't change the physical layout of the machine?
No, it's the same box pretty much. And there are, SSDs are standard. And then people seemed a little grumpy about the idea that they were still selling a 256 gig version, which I thought was but they've been doing that for a really long time. I don't know why that's, do you want a higher capacity? I suppose so. Although with all the cloud services that we're using and the cheap availability of external drives, I don't feel like I have to have a giant drive on my iMac.
Yeah. David, I wanted to get your quick take on the new iMacs. Anything in particular that really excited you about them or think is important?
Yeah, for sure. Like you just everybody mentioned, I'm so glad the Fusion drive is ancient history. That was the biggest joke. I be honest with you with the latest with the iMacs. So I'm so glad they went to solid state. 8 terabytes. That's a great standard now. They can bring out there. It's interesting to see. They're not like Tim Cook said during Dub saying that we're going to continue to come out with some great new Intel-based Macs. I mean, people didn't get excited because the new version, the new redesign didn't come out yet. But you know what? They need speed bump. The iMac Pro was one of them. They hadn't touched that in over 3 years. So that's got a big speed bump. So, all the pros are going to be very happy to jump on that one. Because I think anybody who's bought that older one, at this point, it's out of warranty. So they might be due for replacement. So I think people are going to get excited with that. And also with Xeon processors, you hadn't seen too many options with those types of processor updates. So, but I think Intel's here to stay for a while yet. As much as Apple talked about the Apple Silicon going to be the thing, I just don't see it happening very quickly. So, I mean, I don't think it's any worry that anybody was out there looking for a new iMac and wants to bump up their speed. That it's perfectly fine. You've got 5-6 years at least on this machine.
Well, the one thing that I noted when I went through and did my configuration, because the 256 does seem just a little light for the way I would use. I did not hit the button, folks. So, um, but I noted that the 1 terabyte upgrade was not for storage was not that. I mean, it was $200, I think.
That's all, really? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's not bad at all. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Well, exactly. And now, once you started going beyond that, it gets a little pricier.
Yeah, of course.
Naturally. But I thought, okay, that's good. Apple is finally sort of looking at storage from not exactly a competitive standpoint, but we've talked about it plenty of times here on the show that now with Thunderbolt or Thunderbolt 3, excuse me, you could buy a cheap external you could buy a fast external SSD. Wouldn't necessarily be cheap. And you boot from that, and it would be just as good as the internal drive. So now Apple seems to have taken away my overriding desire to save money and do that, and just let me buy the 1 terabyte, which really didn't help me not push the button either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing about the Apple Silicon transition is I don't think iMacs were ever going to be the first machines to get Apple Silicon. It always felt like it was going to be laptops, maybe Mac Minis, but it really seems like a laptop play first thing. And I think a lot of people will keep an eye. I don't know. And maybe let's just survey the panel. But I feel like people keep desktop Macs, like iMacs, for a pretty good long time, maybe even longer than they keep laptops, although Apple laptops have been kind of weird over the past few years. Like I say, I have this 2015 iMac, which I hadn't planned to replace right away, but it's starting to get into that window where you would think about it. But it's not unreasonable to keep an iMac for 5 years and be reasonably happy with it.
It's also interesting to see, looking at the configurations, that it's only 8 gigs of RAM as a standard. I'm surprised they didn't just bump that up as a standard instead of you having
that is a little surprising, yeah.
Added as an option. That kind of surprises me a little bit. But you're right, Shelly. As far as iMacs go, I see people keeping them 7, 8, 9 years sometimes, and still be happy with them. I mean, I think that gets to the territory where you're going to start seeing some slowness, especially with those Fusion drives that are out there now.
Oh yeah.
But I agree with you that the iMacs tend to the ownership tends to be a long time.
Well, in fact, I had to look to be sure I was right, but the machine I'm recording this on or doing this on is a 2015. Yeah. And my biggest concern is not as much the power, because for what I do with this machine, it's fine. You can always use more power, but it's fine. My biggest concern is the Fusion drive, just because, and frankly, I'd have that concern probably if it were any drive.
Yep.
At 5 years, you start to say, should I definitely want to keep good solid backups because it could go at any time. And from the way I understand the Fusions, because they're part SSD, they're just like SSDs. When they fail, there's no warning, they just go.
Yeah, I haven't had any bad experiences with this drive, but you're right, it's getting to that point. The Mac that I replaced this with was 6 years old, and it was 2009 iMac. And whether it's and that of course had a spinning drive, which is my technical term for neither Fusion nor SSD. And it started making terrible noises toward the end, but at least it warned me. But with this thing, it could go in any time. And yeah, I have my trusty 4 terabyte external backup drive. I have 2 of them, and used to be, because they always told you you should take one away from your primary location, your home or office, store it off site. But there's no more off site, so I guess I have to take it to my mom's, because I back up to a couple of 4 terabyte drives, and that gives me incredible peace of mind knowing that if something terrible happens, I'm good.
Right. Well, and you also have, I guess within InDesign, and maybe you don't want to answer this, but I mean, you would have the option of the Adobe Cloud, and you certainly have Cloud and Dropbox.
I've got other cloud services, and I use them. I don't use the Adobe Cloud so much, probably because I have been using iCloud and Dropbox for different things. But the Adobe Cloud is out there. It's just a matter of, even it's a pain in the butt to reconfigure a computer that went away when you didn't expect it, even if you've backed it all up. It's always like it's going to take you down for a day, and so you don't want that to happen. So, but yeah, cloud services That's why I actually have 3 of them, but
Like
one of them was given to me, but I have 2 that I paid for. So,
Shelly, I can't help it. Please forgive me, but because I've said this a million times, but that's the thing. Your data is one thing, and it's incredibly valuable. But from a productivity standpoint, I'm doing clones as much for the preservation of my production environment.
right.
Because you're right. That, I mean, it could take me a week or probably a lot longer to re-download, reinstall all the apps, get the license keys, get the preferences set the way I want them, and I'm still going to be, reaching for that one utility. Like, oh, I forgot that one. Got to add that one. So,
been there, done that an awful lot, and it's no fun. And this machine is my day job Mac now. I have another one, but I mostly use this one because I like my setup in here. It's my day job Mac. It's my book Mac. It's my, everything else that I do with a computer Mac. I have a laptop, but this one is the one that's my production environment. And if you said to me, well, the iMac's going to be down for a couple of days and you have to work on the laptop, I'd 100% do it. It would much more be about the environment than it would be about the data. The data's backed up 100 different ways. Maybe 99, but yeah.
Yeah. So if you go with the Mac, new iMac, excuse me, if you go with the new iMac, what would your ideal, realistic configuration be?
So this will surprise a lot of people, especially since I'm a person with low vision. You'd think, well, not only do I want a brand new machine, but I want the biggest possible screen. I actually get lost on a 27-inch monitor. So one way I save money when I buy Macs is that I buy the small ones. I buy 21.5. For a brief time, they made 24s, which I thought was just the perfect size iMac. I would love to have that because I had a 27 in here for a while. I just couldn't use it. So I save a ton of money and then I put that into storage. I'd probably get a 1 terabyte. I don't know what the difference between 8 and 16 megabytes of memory is. Gigabytes of memory? Megabytes. Wow. How far back in time are we? But that's the point at which I'm looking at the configurator and I'm like, how bad do I want this? But I'm pretty sure I'd go for that 1 terabytes. I haven't spent any time in the configurator today, Chuck. I haven't been dreaming quite as actively as you have. So I'm not sure beyond that.
Oh, I think you're lying, Shelly, because anytime these announcements come out, you have to go in and just start saying, now what, which one?
I just didn't have time. I 100% would have. I'll probably do it when we're done here. But I just literally it was funny because I saw the news and then I was chatting with some friends on Slack about it, but I didn't ever have the time to go over and configure it. And even after having said, wow, that might actually be something I should be thinking about. So, but it'll happen pretty soon. Probably I'll be looking. I don't know.
Well, Frank in the chat room just reminded me of one other big difference with this one, and it would make a significant difference potentially for what we're doing now, and that is that there's a new 1080p camera.
That's true. It was funny. I've never heard so many people complain about Mac cameras since we've all been on Zoom calls every day since the pandemic. And it's kind of true. That 1080p camera will come in handier. I actually usually do, I'm on an iPad right now, and I kind of like it better for a number of reasons. But and I bet that camera doesn't cost them very much to add. I bet incrementally it's just a small upgrade, and it's modern and it makes sense, and I'm glad they did it.
Yeah. I agree. Because that has been something that has been a big disappointment. I use external cameras whenever I'm on, anything at this point, especially Zoom for business. But not having to just set that up would be very, very nice. So, any thoughts? Either one of you, jump in, David, on the fact that we don't have a case redesign. There was all kind of stuff on Facebook and Twitter today. This is the last hurrah for the non-Apple Silicon iMacs, and I don't know that I expected a major case design, but I'm just a little surprised after as much time between the last one and this one that there wasn't a little something tweaked.
Yeah, I was surprised a little bit. I have a feeling too. I think they're waiting for the big hurrah when the silicon comes out, and they'll have the redesign with the silicon processor. That could have been one of the reasonings of doing it. Is very well. Other reason could be now with the pandemic going on right now, hard to get production going on a new design. They've already got the factories ready to go with the model that we have currently. So that could be also a reason why they held back, is because, like you said, you put your imaginary order in, and you could have got it by Friday. So, I think that kind of where I lean more towards is the fact that they are probably, because of production, getting new, retooling factories to build new machines. This is probably a much more efficient way of doing it right now.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense, and I also think that if they had changed it, it would have been a tweak and not a big change, because changing chips is going to provide them many opportunities, both from a design and, electrical point of view, and also just from a marketing point of view, to say, how can we reimagine the iMac? And this is not a time when they were going to be reimagining the design of hardware. And I guess maybe it's just a flaw in my personality or whatever, but because I like the existing iMac design, could it be improved? Sure. Can we get rid of the bezel? Sure. But because I like the existing iMac design, I don't feel badly that they kept it. And I think what David says about why they probably kept it is a good guess. It would have been interesting to see what they had tweaked if they had. Probably they would have gone edge to edge. That would have been the easiest thing to do, I guess.
Yeah. I think now that Johnny Ive is no longer there, I think that whatever the reimagined iMac will be, it's going to be interesting to see what its characteristics are. Are they going to try for that insane level of thinness and not that I expect them to make a cardboard box out of the thing, but are they going to have that same attention to exactly those aesthetics, or are they really going to truly reimagine it and make it maybe a little more serviceable, not just for us, but for the service people as well?
Well, it's super interesting given what's going on in the iPad world and how those platforms are coming together from a software point of view and also from a use case point of view for a lot of people. And you wonder whether the iPad will be seen as either an opportunity or pressure in terms of how they design the iMac. And we're getting operating systems that are going to allow us to be touching our iMacs more. So does that inform the design in any way beyond just the thinness of it? I don't really know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Do you want to touch, Shelly? Are you one of those that wants to touch your iMac?
No, I don't. I don't at all. There's a very practical reason for it, that I physically sit very close to my screen because I'm really nearsighted. And so you would think that would make you want to touch it, but it gives you gorilla arms because you do this sort of weird motion. Like I'm touching my image on the iPad right now and feeling really ridiculous with my gorilla arms. So I don't, and I'm not, I still use a mouse, which I didn't realize I was as backward as I apparently am, because everybody I know seems to love trackpads. And I considered getting a Magic Trackpad at one point, but I find the mouse completely serviceable. I don't want to not be able to touch it. I think some touch gestures as options would be probably great, and I would probably learn to appreciate them. But I feel like the iPad and the Mac, they're different for a reason, and they should be. And I have one of each, and I like them. And I just don't have a desire to touch the iMac. I wonder how alone I am in that, though.
Well, I'm with you. But you just said something that I think that's really interesting, that I haven't heard anybody express it exactly that way. That you don't want to touch your iMac, but you don't object if you can touch your iMac. And
yeah.
So I would agree with that. That's the first time I would say, okay, a touchscreen iMac's fine. Not really anxious to pay for something I'm not using, but on the other hand, if it pulls it even more into the mainstream, as long as you don't require me to touch it, then that I can work still with the trackpad and keyboard, then fine, have at it.
Well, the thing is too, I haven't used app launchers and spaces and all the various things that Apple and others have given me that would allow me to change the visual appearance of my Finder. But if I had a touch screen, I might rethink that instead of going from the dock. Or I'm a big Keyboard Maestro user, so I launch a lot of stuff from the keyboard, and I'm happy to do it. But I'm not averse to coming in the morning and seeing the 6 or 7 apps that I want to open, and tapping the first one and getting started. And and I can see the value, and that's how I imagine it. But I'm also willing to have my imagination broaden. I imagine touching an app to open it. I imagine pinching to zoom. I don't imagine dragging with my finger. That just seems silly. Dragging files around and the like. Maybe moving windows around. All that. I don't know. I'm open to it, but I don't want to be forced to do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to adopt that because that's exactly my attitude too. We have someone joining us in the Zoom room.
Right,
Mr. Petrie, how are you, sir?
Howdy.
Do we have your audio?
Yeah, dude. Can you hear me?
There we
can
go.
hear you, sir. Good.
Excellent.
Good to hear you. It's good to hear you and see you, Frank.
How did I do that the first time? How did I do it?
Accidents happen.
Yeah.
David, what's your reaction? I mean, I know you've been on these discussions a number of times, but I like Shelly's idea that I don't have to do it, but I could if I felt the need.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. It really depends on what you want to do. I mean, that's definitely what you have to try to do. I mean, I can't really say much else about that in the discussion. I'm sorry. Refresh what you were asking me. I apologize.
Well, just the idea that because I think there's been such a big debate over, touch screen or not touch screen, and I guess I've taken that to mean that I'm going to be forced to use the touch screen as part of the regular interface. I never honestly considered the idea that you might be giving me the option.
Got it. Sorry about that. I'm in the Windows world during the day for my work and enterprise. All my Windows machines have touch screens. I never touch them. I'll be honest with you. I never do. It's always a laptop to me because I've got a Mac as my primary, as my personal device. And some business I do Mac as well. So as far as touchscreen goes on a PC or computer for that matter, I agree with Shelly. I'm not going to go out and reach out to my screen here and want to do touch a screen to do something. I mean, I'm so used to having the mouse, trackpad. I mean, the same thing with the iPad. I have the Magic keyboard with the trackpad, and I've been using that for a while now, and I do like how that trackpad works on the iPad. So sometimes I don't have to touch the screen to get to something, click an icon or move things around or whatever. So, but I agree. I just don't. I'm not a big touch when it comes to a touch screen for any computer for that matter.
And Frank, are you one that wants to touch your Mac, or are you happy with keyboard and mouse?
That sounds awfully rude. The weird thing is I'm going through a thing right now. I have a late 2015, 21.5 iMac, and I'm working on an experiment. I went and bought an iPhone SE and some good lenses, and I wanted to see if I could take a 12.9 iPad Pro, make a really small system, yet come out with quality videos and stuff. But I'm looking at this, and I'm really getting the itch because there's some apps that aren't ported over to iPad. The Silicon iMac I would love to have, but I don't think you're going to see that till February next year. I really don't see it. And what's going to happen, if you look, they didn't really do much with the 21.5 inch. They did a lot with the 27 inch, but not the 21.5 inch, which leads me to believe the 20.5 inch is on its way out. And they're going to go to the 24 inch again.
Wow.
It's been a really long time since they've done that. I would be kind of surprised. I'm surprised that they stuck with the 21.5 as long as they have, but the fact that they have makes me think they want to keep it, primarily for cost reasons. I think because most monitors you buy are 24 inches. That's what people are used to. But you can save a ton of money if you sell a 21.5 inch unit as well as a 27.
Yeah, but,
Sure, but if everybody's going for a 24 inch, why not just put it in the system?
but I will kind of say, with me being a purchaser of equipment in my job, pricing on 24-inch monitors has dropped dramatically. I mean, you can pick up a 24-inch standard monitor now for under $150, even probably less than that.
Yeah,
I'm literally going to configure while you guys talk.
Okay.
That's another rude remark. What is happening to this show?
Because you disparaged my beloved 21.5 inch iMac. Now I have to find out what they've done to it.
Wait a minute, I've got one sitting here. I'm looking at you on it.
Hey, this could be something. We said that Shelly is the first to ever configure on the show. She may be the first one to place an actual order for a new iMac.
No,
right?
no, I can't. Okay, so
wait, are you doing that?
So no, I'm not. But here's what's funny, Chuck. Since you said that, when we were talking about it, and I was talking about not having gone to the configurators, the next thing you said was Frank in the chat. My husband's name is Frank, and if I can imagine him like checking in on. Wait, you're buying what? So I'm glad you're a different Frank. Let me.
Okay, Shelly's husband, Frank, if you're listening, come on in the chat room. We'd love to have you.
Am I supposed to take that as a compliment?
You can take it however you want, Frank.
I mean, I also did notice in the configurator, I was surprised they still offer a Fusion drive, a 1 terabyte Fusion drive as an option in the 21.5 inch machine.
Really?
That's weird.
I thought that was then gone.
It's there, and it's a free upgrade. Wow, how nice!
Well,
so you can spend $200 for an SSD 1 terabyte, or you can get a free Fusion drive.
Well, they should basically be paying you to take the Fusion drive, or at least give you some AirPods.
You're right. It's right here. 1 terabyte Fusion storage. Oh my goodness!
It's silly.
Oh my goodness!
In fact,
Who
that's
would
the
even
only.
do that?
You know what though? I feel just like I don't want to make too much fun of the Fusion drive because I'm sitting here with one for one thing. So stop calling. Stop calling my girlfriend ugly. I mean, but the thing is that I've been surprised at how well the performance on this has held up versus now being completely used to an SSD and a fast SSD based 16-inch MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
So the Fusion drives, I mean, they worked extremely well, and at the time, they saved you a few $100s.
It looks like the Fusion drive is available in all configurations, but on the lowest end configuration, you can't get the SSD. You can get the 256, but they don't have the SSD upgrade options, which is weird. So I had to start configuring on the middle one to get an SSD.
She's going to buy
it. She's my, Shelly.
So this is what I do on Maccessability Roundtable when after keynotes and WWDC, we talk about things and they're like, "Oh, I wonder," and I sit and compare prices like the whole time. I just like, here's the chart. I have the chart.
We'll have more with featured guest Shelly Brisbin, as well as David Ginsburg and Frank Petrie in the next edition of Mac Voices. We'll talk about Phil Schiller's changing role at Apple and his promotion or designation as Apple Fellow, the whole TikTok controversy, and a whole lot more. So join us next time on Mac Voices for all that. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.